we already gave you our predictions, but I think it's healthy for us to unpack some of these major matchups and unpack what it would take to win for either side. Let's start with Georgia-Clemson. In Atlanta, noon kick. This is the one that you're watching. Hopefully, if you're using YouTube Multiview, we can get like a two-box setup where we got West Virginia, Penn State on one and Georgia, Clemson on the other. And if not, I would always recommend using the laptop as what I would call like the JV screen. You got your varsity screen with the game you want to watch. The JV screen is maybe the one you're just trying to pay attention to. At the end of the day, whatever screen you have this one on, this will be a big one. Now, Georgia, they're favored by 2 touchdowns. You know how we feel about that. If you watch this show, we like Georgia to roll. But even with that being said, what would it take for Clemson to win the football game? I think for Clemson, if you're watching the box score and you're trying to like get an actual like black and white feel for what it's going to take to find a way to win in Atlanta over what I believe is the best team in college football, you got to find a way to hold Georgia. And this is a tall task, but it's what it's going to take. I think it's 3 yards a carry. You can hold them to 3 yards a carry, you give yourself a chance. Because in that situation, that means that your defensive front, hopefully you're not having to add too much into that front seven, but at the end of the day, your defensive line and your linebackers are doing a good enough job to force third and passing. Okay, like we can live in like that 3rd and potentially 6. That's good enough to where, okay, we know it's probably a pass. We can plan accordingly. We can try and match up accordingly. And we'll live to play another down, live to play another series, and hopefully get the ball back to your offense. Because as much as it's going to take an effort defensively for Clemson to win this football game, like it's going to take something offensively. How straightforward of a point is that? It's going to take, for me, Clemson going with a little sleight of hand schematically. This is not a game where you can say mano-a-mano, our guys versus your guys. We like our guys. Let's go roll. That's not a game that Clemson is going to win. It's going to take Garrett Riley stretching out, reaching deep into the bag of tricks, and hopefully reaping what he sows in that sense, and finding a way to manufacture some explosive plays. I said it on the prediction show. I'll say it again. I like the skill for Clemson this year. Now, does it reach its potential the first game of the 2024 season? I mean, if you're a Clemson fan, you're hoping and praying that it does, but that's what it would take. For Georgia, it's just going to take them being who we believe them to be. Right? Like, this roster is so stacked. Kirby Smart talking about the deterioration of football. Newsflash, if the rest of the country is experiencing that, Georgia is experiencing that in a first world kind of situation. Ergo, their roster is better than everybody else's. Their depth is better than everybody else's. They just have to play their game. They can't roll out there and read their own press clippings and think they're the number one team in America. Newsflash, Kirby Smart will not allow that to happen. But pretty straightforward. Georgia has to play their game and play to their potential, which, again, kind of a simplistic talking point, but I really think it is that simple when you talk about this game, and that's the reason the spread is what it is. You got Notre Dame at A&M. This is the game that I'd probably put right behind Miami and Florida as like the one that I'm most intrigued to watch, because with the spread being 2.5 favoring A&M, you imagine a good amount of that is favoring A&M because they are the home team. You hear people talk about like the home field advantage being good for like 3 to 4 points. I think Notre Dame wins this football game if Riley Leonard can meet the moment. Again, sort of a cliche thing to say, but roll with me here. We're not sure what the Notre Dame O-line is going to look like. We're not sure exactly what they're going to bring to the table against a pretty talented defensive front in Texas A&M. So for Riley Leonard, there's a very good chance now that we're going to need you to show off that dual threat ability. I'm talking about like, hey, it's not there, pocket closes in. We can't eat a sack there on 3rd and 7 and expect to win this football game. Like I think Texas A&M is too good of an outfit top to bottom. They will make you pay if you take empty possessions too many times in a row. Riley Leonard has to be a guy that elevates in situations where the Notre Dame offensive line is just deficient. I think Mike Denbrock will also have a pretty heavy part to play in that, in scheming around the defensive front. We talked a lot about the modern triple option. That's going to be a big factor. But I need Riley Leonard to be decisive. I need him to be, for the most part, mistake-free. And then on top of that, talking about meeting the moment, I need him to deal some haymakers. I'm not talking about like after the whistle, throw a punch, get your team fired up. That would be a crazy storyline, and we talk about it. But what I want to see from him is when the deep ball is there. How many times have you heard me say this? When the deep ball is there, I need him to connect. Now, it might only be twice in this game. But Texas A&M last year in the secondary was not all that great. Now, there's some new faces. The folks in College Station feel a lot better about that unit going into this season. But it doesn't change the fact that there is something to be tested early in this game. Chris Mitchell is a major X factor in this game. He averaged 17.5 yards of reception last year. For those of y'all that don't know, that's ridiculous. Like that is dynamite explosive. Test that early. And when he's open now, it can't be a thing where you're watching the broadcast, you say, oh, we just missed him by a step. That can't be the situation. You cannot overthrow a dude that has 17.5 yards of reception a season ago. Cannot happen. So connect when there's money on the table. Now for Texas A&M to win this football game, stylistically, I think they need to make this a wrestling match as opposed to a boxing match. Because I just spoke to the haymakers that Riley Leonard really should hopefully be able to connect on if you're a Notre Dame fan. That can't be the style of game that A&M ends up playing. I like A&M's receiving core, but at the end of the day, I like them much better in a game where they're having double-digit play drives. They're taking time off the clock. Connor Wegman, when he does push the ball deep, it's off play action. And Xavier Watts is trying to make a tackle up close to the line of scrimmage. I need it to be a muddy, tiresome, brutal, nasty kind of game for A&M. Not because I don't think they can win in a shootout, but I don't think that style favors them. I think you would much rather have it be a situation where the defense leads the way, the offense works up front, that running back room with Le'Veon Moss leads, downhill and just consistently takes a sledgehammer to Notre Dame. That would be the style of game that I think they need to play. To do that, obviously, you got to play well defensively, and then on top of that, you got to run the football effectively. I told you in our prediction video, 3.5 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry is where I need them to be at if they're going to win this football game. So I talked about Texas A&M having to just kind of take a sledgehammer to this thing and have it be slow and methodical and take the air out of the football. USC LSU will not be that way at all. College football fans, week 1 is here. We want y'all to be subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. It's going to be an incredible college football season. We want all of you college football sickos dialed in to the nth degree with us right here. We appreciate you in advance for being a part of this. USC LSU. If you like points, if you've had a good time playing college football 25 over the course of the last few weeks, then you're at the right place, and this is the show for you because we respect everything about that culture. However, USC LSU, going to be a quarterback duel. All right, it's going to be points. It's going to be explosive plays. It's going to be Garrett Nussmeier, Miller Moss flexing. So simplistically, this may come down to which quarterback plays the cleanest. Just if we're all going to be honest here, it may come down to that. So for LSU to win the football game, I need them to get USC to consistently be in that 3rd and 7 range. Because what we've heard is Blake Baker, you get him to 3rd down, he is not worried about what you think about the secondary. He's going to heat you up. All right, he's going to apply some pressure. That was true of his defense at Missouri. That'll be true of this defense at LSU. Now remember, who's on this defense at LSU? A1 Harold Perkins, now rocking the number 7. They're going to cut him loose. And so if you get to 3rd and 7, you cut Harold Perkins loose enough times now, that's going to create some mayhem. We got more thoughts on Harold Perkins a little bit later in the show, but the point remains the same. Get to 3rd down, have a chance to wreak havoc. That's all you can ask for. In the city of Las Vegas, where gambling is one of the major generators of that economy, let's gamble a little bit on 3rd down. Let's get to 3rd down so we can gamble. Now for USC, I think they can win this football game if, and only if, they take body blows and avoid the knockout punches. A lot of combat sports being baked into this segment, so we appreciate y'all for dialing in with the MMA and boxing and wrestling references. It can't be a situation where USC gets it to 3rd and 6, gets it to call it 3rd and 3, and then Garrett Nussmeier goes over the top to Kyron Lacey, to CJ Daniels, strike up the band. I'm okay with USC taking the body blows. I'm okay with them giving up 3 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, and just having it be a slow, methodical kind of drive. Because the thing with that is, that means that typically, if you're having to run the football and can't have success throwing the ball downfield against LSU, you're going to get to the red zone, the field condenses, there's a lot less space to work with, and if that's the rhythm, they're going to have to settle for 3 instead of 7. You can't settle for 3 in this football game and expect to win. It's not going to happen. So for USC, again, take the body blows. That's fine. Just don't allow for that big play, deep shot, because at that point, start to press, start to maybe call some things offensively and make some decisions offensively you wouldn't make. Overall, it's a bad situation. You don't want that to happen. You allowed 7.7 yards a pass last season. LSU, they averaged 10.1. Got to fix that. Got to skew that number back towards USC's direction in this game to have a chance to get it done. If they can, there'll be very, very good vibes on Monday morning in Los Angeles. Now, for Florida-Miami, we're going to talk more about this game in just a little bit. But how much have we talked about the way that Cristobal has built this roster to a year like this and built the trenches to be in a position like they are right now? Like, they went to the portal now, and they treated that thing like a Walmart. They went out and got, a pretty large quantity of pieces, 15 to be exact. Simeon Barrow is a guy that I expect to have a very positive impact on the interior of that defensive line. Big body transfer from Michigan State, played a lot of football. Ruben Bain is a name that a lot of folks in Coral Gables already know. A lot of folks that really pay attention to this sport nationally already know. Freak show, true sophomore, everything last year, it felt like. He's in for another big year. Tyler Barron, the transfer from Tennessee by way of Louisville, he's now at Miami. So they have a lot of pieces now, and that looks like an advantage. If it's going to be a Miami win, that has to be as advertised. Has to be as advertised. Because if they don't bring their A game, and it's not actually like a decisive Miami victory up front, well, then Florida gets to kind of open up the playbook a little bit. They get to be a little bit more dynamic. They get to have some push up front in the run game, and then you have to overcompensate, and then things happen downfield. More on that in a little bit, but like overall, the defensive line, the trenches for Miami, has to be what we have assumed it's going to be going into this game. The reason why I mentioned that, remember, we kept telling you last week, hey, Florida State, the defensive line, really good. And it wasn't just us. Pete Thamel on College Game Day said they're the best defensive line in America. He'd make that up. It wasn't him just grasping at straws. Like, that was believed to be factual going into that game. Ended up not being the case. Miami fans are going to hate me comping you to Florida State. I'm just saying that cannot be the same thing we're talking about after the game of, wow, we really whiffed on the defensive line with what we assessed them to be. Cannot be the case. So that paired with Cam Ward and just, we keep saying this, but his pulse when he walks out there in the swamp has to be steady. It has to be. It's a tall task. It's going to be, I believe, the toughest environment he's ever had to play in as a collegiate quarterback. Like, it's going to be very difficult with this atmosphere. It's a big reason why we like Florida a lot in this game. But if Miami is going to be able to handle the external circumstances that is the swamp, Cam Ward is the tone setter for all of that. As your leadership goes, so your football team goes. Cam Ward is the alpha of this football team. Ask anybody. They'll tell you that. If he's not having his heartbeat accelerate and the eyes get big, the rest of the roster will respond accordingly over the course of the game. So if that's the case, that minimizes the home field advantage for Florida. We look at this game very, very differently. So for Florida, if they want to win the game, Trey Wilson has got to be the ace of spades. Eugene Wilson, third wide receiver for Florida. He averaged 9 yards a touch in 2023. I don't think we even saw his best over the course of last season. Another year with Graham Mertz, more weapons around him. If Trey Wilson gets going early, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show as well, if he gets going early, good things are happening for Florida because that kind of unlocks the rest of the offense. More guys get open. You start to use him as a decoy as the game wears on. Maybe you get him in motion across the formation. Boom, we're back across the other way with Baugh. Like, there's a lot of good things that can happen if Trey Wilson gets cooking. And I think especially situationally, like I'm talking, this game is going to be close, going to be down to the wire, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. You go to Trey Wilson. He has to be your ace of spades, your answer for you in this game. Now, in addition to that, we talk a lot about how good Cam Ward is, especially ad-libbing. If Florida wants to lose this game, let Cam Ward ad-lib. Let him just run around back there, play Houdini. You try to tackle him, he reverses field. Because what that does is not only does it wear out your front seven, but also it allows the Miami receiving corps to have time to separate downfield. It's tough for anybody to cover anybody for more than 3 to 4 seconds, let alone 5 to 6 if he's able to utilize his athleticism and eventually find someone open downfield. Cannot happen. And if you're Florida, it will not happen if you win this football game. So a lot to break down there. Week 1 is upon us. Let me know your takes as we jump into the glorious thing that is week 1 of the 2024 season. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.